There have been multiple attempts to refine and expand upon the cooperative horde-shooter formula, all of which are still eclipsed by 2009's easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master, and infinitely replayable Left 4 Dead 2. The Anacrusis, developed and published by Stray Bombay, shows plenty of potential, with a focus on minute-to-minute gameplay and the promise of mod support, rather than persistent progression systems. However, this early access release also highlights the need for balancing, polish, and console optimization before going gold. I'll admit, with former Left 4 Dead 2 and Portal 2 writer Chet Falasek, co-founder of the studio, I went in expecting entertaining protagonist interactions and a fair bit of organic world building through dialogue or environmental storytelling. However, in its current state, and perhaps also a consequence of the online-only nature, the Anacrusis has no coherent sense of progression, despite being broken into 5 sequential episodes, 3 of which are currently available. To be fair, the Left 4 Dead games had only loosely connected campaigns to ensure they still felt satisfying as standalone experiences, but you were always able to simply host a game, picking up where you left off, if you wanted some narrative flow. In contrast, without a visit to the Anacrusis' official website, all I could have told you is, survive after aliens invade a retro-futuristic space cruiser. Picking an episode is merely a suggestion, and the game will rather team you up on a different episode, sometimes dumping you into the middle of the action, rather than let you start solo with bots and wait on other players. Loading screens and safe room banter reveal a little more about the protagonist's backstories and their current situation, but it often feels like they're pulled at random. As a result, there's little sense of continuity as you move between the available episodes, and the presence of mid-mission dialogue, some of which does seem to refer to prior episodes, is erratically doled out. This inconsistency also has gameplay ramifications. You'll always hear call-outs for special aliens and general directions, but the narrative and objective quips are inconsistent. I experienced several runs in which I heard almost nothing during a 15 to 20 minute map, only to have an incredibly chatty crew on the next map, and then silence again for the third. This lack of feedback, coupled with minimal HUD markers, can have a detrimental impact on first impressions. When I was tackling an episode for the first time, paired with equally inexperienced teammates, we often ended up running around in circles, swamped by endlessly respawning hordes and special aliens, with little idea of how to progress. Now, I appreciate these games are designed for endless replayability, with far greater focus on unpredictable gameplay thanks to the AI director. However, the Anacrusis desperately needs some sort of introductory cutscene, the ability to ensure you start at the beginning of an episode when matchmaking, and better dialogue triggers. Now, everyone enjoys some narrative context, if only for the first playthrough, and, given the novel and stylish setting, it's a shame we know so little about the universe, or the protagonist's overarching purpose. Now, I started by saying the Anacrusis had potential, and the core gameplay feels very close to the pure Left 4 Dead formula, ditching the repetitive, persistent progression systems found in so many modern games, for a focus on the run-to-run experience. Now, the core formula remains unchanged. Run and gun from safe room A to safe room B, completing 1 or 2 objectives in the process, while the AI director ensures no 2 runs feel identical. At its most basic, this means changing up enemy and item placement, but it can also increase or decrease the challenge based on how your team is doing. Find yourself running around with max health and reserve healing items, expect a bare minimum of pickups and a flurry of special alien spawns. On the other hand, if you find your entire team limping forward at low health, you can expect a breather and several health pickups to get you back on your feet. This formula worked brilliantly way back in 2008's original Left 4 Dead, was refined in the sequel, and still serves as the foundation for every game in the genre. Now, when it comes to the gunplay, the Anacrusis offers a distinctly sci-fi selection of firearms and gadgets, most of them of the pew-pew laser variety, and they feel well balanced, if lacking impact. The pistol is your fallback weapon that can still pull off the odd headshot, or cover your savior when they're trying to revive you. The blaster is an energy shotgun that clears a wide arc in front of you. The SMB, a submachine blaster, excels at cutting down on approaching hordes of basic infected humans. The plasma rifle serves a similar purpose, but trades clip size for longer range and precision. The heavy weapon slot is reserved for equipment that may potentially spawn in each map. There's a laser rifle, think incendiary death beam, the arc rifle, think chain lightning, and a deployable turret, all of which are best for holdout moments or finale events. Ammunition reserves are limited, and given the length of each map and the number of enemies you face, this forces you to keep an eye out for charging stations, think ammunition caches, or switch up weapons as you find them. The gadgets are also sci-fi in nature, but they don't stray too far from genre conventions. Every player has a recharging pulse ability that can shove basic enemies away, and almost consistently if your team is coordinated enough. Recovery items restore health or provide temporary health, and there are multiple grenade types to deal with. Think explosive, incendiary, goo, stasis, and shield. Thankfully, in-game character progression follows a roguelike single-run structure, and the Anacrusis only offers up unlockable cosmetics and emotes. Matter compilers, randomly spawned and often hidden away, allow you to pick from one of 3 random perks. These can enhance player, weapon, and gadget abilities. Think stuff like faster revives or healing speeds, increased fire rate or new bullet behavior, and improved range or efficacy for your pulse ability or grenades. A truly coordinated team can create a powerful mix of individual and team-based perks that increase their survivability and their damage output. Now, any impressions or review piece is obviously subjective, but I'd argue far too many PvE games have shifted the focus to persistent progression buffs, which ultimately leads to uneven co-op sessions, especially when you rely on randoms to fill out your team. Without a dedicated team of similarly leveled players, you often find yourself either overpowered or spending your time as an ineffective third wheel. The Anacrusis takes the classic approach of ensuring every match starts off on even footing, with progress dependent on individual skill and team strategy, rather than skewed towards whoever has the most time to grind, or pay, for character buffs and better gear. Now, as an early access title, the experience is far from perfect, and there's room for improvement. There's the aforementioned problem with vague HUD markers and skipped dialogue leaving players confused about objectives. There's the inability to start an episode with bots and wait on friends or randoms to join. And, talking of said bots, they're competent enough when there's only 1 or 2 of them on a team, but I can see why there's no dedicated solo mode yet. They always prioritize revives and healing, even if it kills them, but their pathfinding is awful in vertical rooms, which can see them lagging or charging forward and falling off ledges, instead of sticking with actual players. However, my biggest issue with the Anacrusis so far is the reliance on immobilizing aliens as run killers. It has a fairly conventional roster of special aliens that'll be instantly familiar to fans of the genre, but 2 variants are particularly infuriating. The Grabber serves the same pinning role as Left 4 Dead's Hunter, but it can immobilize 2 players simultaneously, with tentacles that grab at insane ranges. The Goober, a modified version of Left 4 Dead 2's Spitter, spews goo that slows players but can also immobilize them with a direct hit. In the middle of a chaotic battle, a single goober can ensnare an entire team, leaving them with no way to escape, and guaranteeing a trip back to the safe room. This goo can only be shot off by allies, and apparently being bludgeoned to death by aliens doesn't count. Now, given it's coming from a smaller indie developer, I didn't expect the presentation to be one of the strongest elements. Sure, improvements are still needed. Animations are stiff, there are weird ragdoll moments, and the limited hit feedback robs the combat of impact. But the visual style and soundtrack are exceptional. I never realized I needed a brighter, more family-friendly Left 4 Dead experience, without the incessantly grim atmosphere, dark visuals, and bloody violence. There is something strangely serene about the environments and the ambient music while exploring, coupled with some great high-tempo tracks for holdout moments when you're being swarmed. The visuals are not all for show either, as color is used to convey information to players. The eyes, or eye, of the basic infected humans glow red when they spot you and turn hostile, while the special aliens all have a distinctive silhouette and color. The flashes that lead swarms of infected generate a blinding incandescent glow. Brutes glow menacingly red, grabbers are electric blue, goopers are sickly green, and spawn is bright yellow. It makes it much easier to spot threats in the heat of battle and pick your targets. Unfortunately, at least for Xbox Series S players, the Anacrusis still needs optimization on console. It targets 60 frames per second on the budget console, but it fluctuates wildly. In contrast, my now 5-year-old gaming notebook, with a middling i5 processor, GTX 1050 Ti, 16GB of RAM, and a SATA-connected SSD, required only a few tweaks to the visual settings to maintain a more stable 1080p 60 while looking just as good. So despite the incoherent narrative layer, some balancing issues, and technical issues in this early access release, I still think the Anacrusis has real potential. The core gameplay loop feels very, very close to the pick-up-and-play experience that still makes Left 4 Dead timeless. With the feedback and data they gather from this early access period, I'm just hoping Stray Bombay are given the time and the budget they need to polish this to perfection.